Thank you. Mr. Agnew.
The one reaction most of us will have in here to the presentation is the word complication. It is hugely complicated. And I think the fundamental mistake was to try and bring this into Pillar 1. I feel that Pillar 1 should have been reserved for cash support to farmers. And then you then have a Pillar 2 where you bring in all these different schemes and the different member states can decide what is appropriate. It then goes on from there to talk about fallow. Now, in what we might call the good old days, where we couldn't control weeds very well, fallow was a part of the rotation. And in order to keep the land fallow, in other words, free of weeds, you actually had to plough it 4 times during the year. That way, you kept it free of weeds. Now, of course, ploughing consumes quite a lot of energy, and of course it keeps turning the soil over, so it's not that good for the environment, you might say. But I wonder if most of the population really know what the word fallow means, but you take the other use of it, you just simply leave the land, you just leave it there from the last harvest. Well, what will happen then is that you will get an ingress of perennial weeds that will ultimately have to be cleared up. That land is going backwards. And finally, of course, there is a real contradiction here. The European Union is short of protein crops. We really ought to be growing more. We're far too dependent on imports for this. So you could say, OK, if you want to get your Pillar 1 subsidy, you must grow some protein crops, which they have said. But they've then said, oh, but you mustn't use plant protection materials on them. They've got to effectively be grown organically for no organic premium, which means they will all lose money. Now, you can only have about 15% of your farm in leguminous crops, peas and beans, because of rotation restrictions. If 5% has to be farmed badly, take it overall, and you're probably going to make a loss on the whole lot. This really does have to be revisited. If we want our own protein crops in Europe, we must let farmers farm them properly. Thank you.